Jedi to Horus and men Horus in our figure 7, you wouldn't know they were females unless you understand the Egyptian angles, would you? Not everything in these things are male. There's male, female. Well, Chephat is said to shed light. And Chephetch, the word Chephetch, is the pupil of the eye of Re, in other words, the eye of Horus, and it's mentioned so often in the pyramid texts. It might be a celestial food made of light, or some product of the mythological olive tree. That's a remarkable idea. In any case, Nekab-Kau was a very ancient goddess who was connected with the Elysian fields of the Egyptians. She's often depicted in the form of a serpent with human legs and arms, sometimes with wings also. Again, the heavenly journeying idea symbolized by wings, movement, heaven, flight, ascension. She carries in her hands 1 or 2 vases containing food for the deceased. Well, so this cluster of symbols, again associated with male and female. And the idea here, I want to get to this real quick while I've got this idea on Isis, associated with men Horus. Jeremy Nadler, in his new book, Temple of the Cosmos, The Ancient Egyptian Experience of the Sacred. This is from Inner Traditions, 1996. He notes on page 85. And he also discusses the Festival of Men, which I want to read to you. Well, at the beginning of the 9th month, at the time of the new moon, is when the Festival of Men began. Now notice this. The time of the new moon, this is the rebirth of the moon, the resurrected, the rejuvenation. This principle is constantly announced through the Egyptian symbolisms because they were after eternal life. Well, normally represented as an anthrophalic god, Min was preeminently a god of fertility. And by the Middle Kingdom, men had been brought into association with Horus. Here we go, our figure 7. And references are frequently made to the synchronized god, Min Horus, whose mother was Isis, and here's his crucial point. However, Isis could also be Min's consort, and Horus their child. The Hyros Gamos, the sacred marriage, the marriage of heaven and earth, the union of opposites, the concluding deification of mankind, the unity of the human with the divine, the at-one-ment. This is what our figure 7 is showing us. Either way, the Pharaoh, now the Pharaoh, of course, was the living embodiment of Horus, of course. He had a special relationship to men. At his coronation, Pharaoh's, there was a huge procession and feast in honor of men, and this both injected men's regenerative energies into the kingship for the Pharaoh, as well as reaffirmed the powers of fertility throughout the land. And this is one of Pharaoh's reasons for being Pharaoh. And he was considered divine here. The procession and feast of men was then repeated each year at the time of the harvest. This is on page 85. On page 87, he continues through the procession and festival of men. Groups of priests carried bundles of lettuce, which was sacred to the god, and lettuce in the ancient world was considered as having aphrodisiac qualities. The chief act of the ceremony now of men is where the king symbolically reaps the first ears of emmer wheat. Notice this, emmer wheat, and then presents them to the god. The wafer of the Catholic Mass. You remember that? Yeah, what is it? It's a wafer of wheat. Well, according to Frankfurt, here we go. This is the critical point here, page 87. According to Frankfurt, it is possible that the king and queen had ritual sexual intercourse at this stage of the ceremony, with the king taking the role of Min himself. And this ceremony ended with the release of 4 sparrows to the 4 cardinal points of the compass to carry news of Min's festival and of the prosperity of the king to all the parts of Egypt. It is through the performance of these rituals, it was a highly ritualized society. Through the performance of these rituals, men became a tangible presence. A fusion took place between the mythical and the natural realms. Here we go again. Even the opposites of mythical and natural coincide here. Min is the archetypal principle of fertility and regeneration. The celebration of a festival in his honor would have had the purpose of invoking and bringing down to earth the potency of the god. Of course, that's the idea. Well, it's significant, therefore, that the king should, at a certain stage of the ceremony, become the living embodiment of the god, the deification, you see. In his being, the merging of the archetype and the physical realms was accomplished. Well, one of the king's principal roles in Egypt, of course, is to ensure the fertility of the land. So, his fusion with this particular god is not, it is not only symbolically appropriate, but it's necessary. Well, so that's a little bit on that idea. Emphasis is placed on the regeneration of the life principle. He says this on page 89. And the life-sustaining forces in the earthly sphere is mediated through Horus, as the king unites with not only Osiris, but with Horus and with men. Horus is able to bring about the resurrection of Osiris in the other world. Osiris was represented by the wheat, and his death was the threshing of the wheat. Madler says that on page 88. Well, his resurrection was brought about through his son. You see, Abraham is Osiris on that lion couch in our facsimile number 1. This all connects. Very intriguing how this functions as symbols for universal galactic processes of constant creation. This is a big theme to the Egyptians. It's a big theme to the Zoharic Jews. Creation was not just a one-time event sometime way in the distant past. No, it is an ever-ongoing process. Our Book of Moses in the Pearl of Great Price. Worlds come, worlds go. Worlds have been created for eons and eons. God is still involved in the creation, actively sustaining it. This is what Nephi says, 2nd Nephi. He said, if we were allowed to die and rot and crumble and rise no more, then that would be the end. But there is a power bringing about the life processes, the regeneration and the rejuvenation, and he calls that power the infinite atonement. A beautiful concept here, which I propose is pictorially presented in the process of facsimile 1, 2, and then 3. Fantastic. And more of the serpent symbolism, more the idea behind what is going on with all these different animal symbols, forms, ideas. Why? Why are they doing this? John Anthony West, in his 1993 book, Serpent in the Sky, The High Wisdom of Ancient Egypt, page 132, 133. I need to elaborate a little bit on this because it contains an overall principle that is extremely powerful within Mormonism as a divine restoration. And it is relevant to Figure 7. Seems like everything is relevant to Figure 7 because of the combination of the parts of the overall symbol. Well, in Platonic terms, Plato, the Greeks. Let's go to the Greeks. Why not? Everything begins with the Greeks. Well, everything begins with the Egyptians, and the Greeks scientifically analyzed everything. I'll put it that way. Well, anyway, in